Welcome to episode 40 of the Hoop Threads podcast. Back from a long hiatus, had some crazy stuff happening in the personal life, but I got my man Pat Stasiak. I got him on the pod. Really excited. Colgate director of basketball operations, former excellent SUNY Cortland student coach and manager with me back in the day. Pat, how's it going? Glad to have you on.
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good to finally catch up with you. You're a hard man to get a hold of sometimes. They got you doing a lot of stuff up there. All right, so let's take it back to the beginning. Let's talk about where your love for the game first started. How you ended up at Cortland and then Colgate afterwards.
Well, I played in high school. I think that's kind of when I fell in love with basketball. I had an older brother who was a much better player than me, but just competing with him every day kind of made me fall in love with basketball and just competing. So from there, I just kept playing. And then when I went to Cortland, when I was making my college decision, I kind of knew I wanted to stay involved with the game somehow. And I knew eventually I wanted to coach. At that time, I didn't really know what level or, I kind of just thought I wanted to be a high school coach. So I ended up at SUNY Cortland with you, and I'm working with Coach Spanbauer, and that's kind of what kind of sparked me to be like, all right, I think I want to coach at the college level is if I can. And then just grinding it out with you and Coach Span doing all the dirty work was kind of how I started, I guess.
Just a quick shout out to you for saving my life every time I screwed up something with his ridiculous rules for these one-sided games and everything. I was talking to Mo.
I think that's
today. He'd be like, "Oh no, if the ball bounces twice, it's 3 points." I'm like, "All right, man, Pat, just over, bro." Pat,
yeah, he spoke a different language on some of his drills and how he scored it, but I think that's the name of the game when you're a manager, GA, student assistant, whatever you are. Like I think the name of the game is just figuring it out as you go.
Yeah, it really is trial and error, that's for sure. So. Talk about, what led you to wanting to be a student manager. I know that you and Billy Buckets, I think, had a prior relationship, both being from the 716 from the Buffalo area. Talk about those kind of formative years, soaking on, all of the information from Coach Span. I don't know if he is yet, but I'm sure he'll be in the Cortland Hall of Fame one day. I mean, via his playing career, and he's been there for 20 something years at this point. So, kind of what did you learn, and what did you pick up in your time at SUNY Cortland?
Span will definitely be in that Hall of Fame, but I don't know. I think it was Span and all his assistants, and like working with you and Buckets and a lot of guys. Like you just kind of pick up little things as you go. I think Span did an unbelievable job of putting players in positions where they can succeed based off of like who they were as a player. So he never asked guys to do stuff that they couldn't do, which I think is why he had a lot of success. So he would change what he did a little bit or put people in different spots based off of their skill set, which I definitely took that with me. I don't know, I think Buckets he taught me everything I knew there. So I was lost my first semester until Buckets got back, but he just like being organized and kind of just whatever you could do to help was Buckets' mindset. So
yeah,
I think I adopted that from him, and it helped me, eventually get an assistant coaching spot for Span because I was around for 4 years, and I think Span was like, all right, well, he just worked for me for 4 years and did everything he could, so let's give him a chance at coaching now. So I don't know. I think that's kind of my main takeaways.
But yeah, I thought it was always interesting too. Like Buckets was always, and he was always able to anticipate what coach needed before he needed it, and that was kind of the takeaway that I had from it. But talk about some of the offensive principles at SUNY Cortland, some of the kind of the staples of the program, as far as the culture, like what it means to be a Red Dragon.
So yeah, I think that's an interesting topic. Like you know how it is. Like all the alumni always come back, and I think there's more tradition at a place like Cortland than you'd think, being a state school and there being a lot of students and whatnot. But like I still talk to alumni. I talk to Mo probably once a week. I was just at Harrison Heffley's wedding. I talked to Buckets and TJ Heffley. Mike Kelly just came up to visit me in Hamilton a couple weeks ago. Like, just, you're always in touch with those guys. Like, me and Harrison Heffley were just talking about, he's in a group text with all the guys he graduated with still. And he graduated, like 8 years ago now, something like that, 9 years ago. So I think there's a lot of people that are proud to, there's a lot of people that are proud to say they played for Cortland and played for Coach Spanbauer. So I think that speaks for itself. I mean, there's also a lot of guys coaching that play there. So, like, not only did they have a great experience playing at Cortland, but they're still involved in the game of basketball. So I think that stems back to Coach Spanbauer and Cortland.
Got you. Talk about let's talk about hoop group first. So let's talk about, that period of college, especially junior year, senior year, when you're like, I know that this was the same thing for me. So, you're like, I know I want to be involved in the game. I want to find a spot after that. Talk about, the different, situations you put yourself into, not only gain experience, but also build connections and network, with hopes to find a job down the line, but also just, to meet and connect with, good people that are just, basketball minds.
Yeah, for sure. So me and Eamon Marr, we started working at Hoop Group together. So his father, Buddy Marr, is a legendary coach. And he kind of told me and Eamon when we were SUNY Cortland students, like, you want to coach in college, and I'm going to drop you off in Reading, Pennsylvania, and you're going to work there all summer. And I was like, all right. But I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But it was pretty clear once you get there, you're going to work hard. You're going to do a lot of stuff that, needs to get done that you might not like doing, but there's a lot of stuff that comes with running a camp that large that isn't glamorous, but the people you work with are awesome. So you're just meeting so many people from so many different areas and so many different backgrounds, whether they're JUCO kids or JUCO coaches or Division I, Division II, Division III, high school, prep school. Like, there's so many different avenues in college basketball. Like, you meet all these people at once and you're building relationships, and you're doing jobs that are like difficult tasks sometimes, but you're doing it with other people, so you build a strong relationship while you're doing it with them. I still stay in touch with so many of those people all the time. Hoop Group was great because it allowed me to learn about college athletics and college basketball outside of Cortland. So I had felt comfortable about, learning from Coach Spanbauer and everything he was doing in his program, but it allowed me to see how other people run their programs, like from the outside looking in. Like, I was able to learn from, hearing from other people what they do in situations or in practice or the off season, stuff like that, which you kind of just always like picking up stuff like that. And whether you like it or not, like, it might be something I might have heard something, I don't know, it's interesting. I don't really like that, but I could do it this way. It's like you're always adapting and tweaking different ideas from these people you're meeting. Hoop Group's just the definition of figure it out. Like, you might just get a task and they might not tell you how to do it, but you just got to figure it out. And I think that's really important to learn how to do in college athletics is how to do that, because you never know what challenge you're going to face, or, something might happen. And the more you wake up in the morning, you might not know what you're getting yourself into that day, and something might happen. You got to adjust and figure out how to solve a problem. So I think Hoop Group definitely taught me a little bit of that. You'll never stop doing that in college athletics. So I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah. Let's talk real quick about, I think it was really important. I'm going to mess this up. The podcast that you were on, was it Better Coaches? I forget the name of it.
I forget the name too. Coach Andy Stark.
Oh man, I'm killing. I just listened to this stuff too. That's the embarrassing thing. I actually have it on my phone. Let me look it up real quick because I definitely want to shout him out. Undercover Coaches podcast. There we go.
Yeah. That's it. Coach Andy Stark.
Great interview with you. He beat me to it. He got you on there first the full year. Goodness gracious. But he was kind of talking about building a relationship with the Colgate staff, it happened organically, but it was also, it was also intentional. Talk about, how that, that relationship was obviously important for you to, get to the spot that you're in now.
Yeah. So I had met Coach Mike Jordan and Coach Dave Klatsky at Hoop Group. So just kind of in passing, and I think MJ had asked me where a certain player was playing, and I showed him what court it was. And, you're always seeing like the same coaches come and recruit these events. So I kind of just kept up with them. And then one day he gave me his business card and was like, "Hey, stay in touch, man. Like, let me know if you need anything." And I was like, "Well, I go to school like only like an hour from Colgate. Can I come by practice?" And that was something I always did. And I really like doing it. And I still do it when I can, is just go to someone else's practice and just observe. So I came to Colgate once, and I was like, wow, like I really like what they're doing. Like I like the way they structure the practice. I like the intensity of the practice, and I kind of kept coming back. Like I asked them, I was like, "Hey, can I keep coming?" They're like, "Yeah, whenever you want." So I just kept coming. I'd take notes. I'd talk to the guys after, and I never did that thinking I'd end up working at Colgate. But when the opportunity came open and the ops job came open, those guys called me and asked if I'd be interested, just because I built up that relationship with them. And, one thing led to the other, and I ended up being fortunate enough to be here as the ops guy. But like you said, it kind of just organically happened over time. And like, I don't know, I never thought at the time I was doing it to get a job with them, but it worked out that way. And it's probably been the best thing for me to, move on. I think when you're young and coaching, there's some value to learning from different people or working with different people when you're younger, like you're able to be a little more flexible and move around and things like that. So the opportunity came up, and I jumped on it. I was actually living on Mo's couch before I interviewed here, and I just kind of moved out here right away.
Don't have to get out of a leash there, so that's nice.
Yeah, but then like when I started here, I didn't know these guys super well. I'd known them because I'd come to practice and they'd talk with me after, and I'd hang out for a little bit. Yeah. But it made it easier when I started. Like I wasn't just starting in a place where I didn't know anybody. Yep. So I didn't know the players on a personal level. I had known some of the players just from watching them practice. Yeah. Which is interesting because I think I had my own assumptions about guys before I had a chance to build a relationship with them. Okay. And then I ended up getting the job here and being able to meet them and build that relationship. But when I started, it was, I knew Coach Klatsky, I knew Coach Jordan, and I'd met Coach Langle, and then Coach Moore, who was just in the ops spot before me, got promoted to assistant. So it helped me like adjust to a new role, being able to have natural conversations, and had already known the staff, which was cool.
Let's talk real quick. I mean, just going to those practices, talk about what some of your takeaways were, and maybe some things that you picked up on then, and kind of what you saw about the practice, maybe that you didn't see, now that you saw then.
Yeah. So I think at first I went in with the mindset where I was more looking at X's and O's, and I got there, and I think the offensive style of play that we have here is very free flowing, and it's pretty fun to play in if you're a player. Yep. So I think at first I was like, oh, let's go look at what they're running offensively and what they're doing on defense, and how can I, bring this back to Cortland, and how can I go to Coach Spanbauer and say, hey, this is a cool action, this is a cool quick hitter. And then I kept going back, and the more I'd go back, the more I'd pay attention to, like what were the assistants doing in the practice? What was Coach Langle doing? Like, how was the practice structured? Like, how did Coach Langle, coach the guys? How did he word certain statements? Like little things like that, which I didn't think I was going to be starting to pay attention to. I started to pay attention to. I think our practices are intense and we compete, but it's not the style of coaching where you're just screaming at guys the whole time. Like it's stuff like that I started to pick up on more and more, which I think to me might be more valuable than the X's and O's at that point in time. For me, like eventually I ended up getting hired as an assistant at Cortland, and then I was in the position at Cortland to be in a practice, and I would reflect on what I saw the assistants at Colgate do, which was cool. But I don't think there's – I guess it was a little while ago now, but there was a lot of, like, little things I'd pick up on, or, like habits of the players. Like, after I'd been to, like, 2 or 3 practices, I could kind of get a sense for the players. Like, oh, this guy's doing this. He did this every practice, or after practice, this guy was shooting with this coach, stuff like that would stay with me and help me as I ended up working for Span as an assistant.
Let's talk real quick about the story I was told to ask you about. I was told that there was a certain situation where you're supposed to move a ball rack and forgot to do that.
Oh, man.
Span kind of lost his mind.
That was my first game ever at SUNY Cortland.
Oh, wow.
Game 1. So as a manager, it was my job to move the ball rack out for warm-ups and move it out, after warm-ups. So I'm wheeling the ball rack off the floor, and I'm wheeling it right by our bench, and Coach Span was like, just leave it right here. Just leave it right here. You got to bring it out at halftime. So I left it kind of by the scores table almost. And I'm sitting at the end of the bench during the game. And the first half, we weren't really playing well. And Span was all over the guys. He was all over the officials. All of a sudden, he kind of gets a little heated with the official. And maybe it wasn't the official. Maybe it was one of the guys. But he gets a little intense, and he just punched the ball rack. Balls just went everywhere. He gets a technical. I'm looking like, oh my God, this is game 1. Like, it's over for me. He might fire me. And then, Coach Spanbauer, like, I don't even think he remembers telling me to put the ball rack there. So I'm running all over, like, picking up the ball. You were running all over picking up the balls with me, I think.
I was filming up above, so that wasn't me.
Yeah, you got lucky. I was chasing him down. So I was all nervous after the game, and we ended up coming back and winning, thankfully. And Coach Span didn't say a word about it. So he never said anything. I'm like, I think I'm in the clear. Maybe just, like, I don't know if he forgot about it or what. And probably like 2 weeks later, I walk into Span's office after class one day, like grabbing the pennies and stuff to get ready for practice. And Span looks, like, wow, that technical is your fault. And I was like, oh my. Like 2 weeks later, I was like, man, it's over. Like, he's going to fire me. This is it. And then he just never said anything about it. He's like, that technical is your fault. And I apologized to him, and I walk out of his office, and I heard him kind of like chuckling in his office. So I think it was his way of busting my chops. But I'll tell you that every game for the rest of that year, when I had to move the ball rack, I moved it all the way into the closet, well past the bench, nowhere near him. I almost forgot. I was glad I almost forgot about that one. Thanks for bringing it up.
That was from Mo. Mo said to send his love on that one.
Yeah, Mo loves that story. That was Mo's senior year.
Hey man, it was probably Kev that saved us on that one.
Yeah, true.
Kev really did bail us out of a lot of tough spots. So let's talk about, the last one is something that Coach Span always, I always heard him say at the BCANY clinics, where, he's hosting, a bunch of high school and college coaches come in for clinics every year, which, by the way, I did not know about. Like, I remember we were playing pickup on the floor, and then all of a sudden there's like 100 coaches surrounding the court. Like, it was like,
yeah, he set you up.
It was like when we would be like if you're at Wegmans and you're at the butcher or something waiting for your meat, like they're all like looking at us like they, whether like they obviously weren't like recruiting, but they were like evaluating. It was funny. Before, I actually ended up staying, and like Stan Van Gundy came later, Jim Boeheim, all that. Anyways, so he always says during those is like, there is no Division 4. He's like, I had to load my truck this morning to grab, the tables for you guys and all that stuff. So kind of talk about the difference between the levels and, how that experience of having to wear, I'm sure you had to wear a ton of hats, kind of prepared you for the role that you're in now, especially as an ops guy.
Yeah, I think one thing Span always told the players I thought was interesting was he always said I think it was like 3% of high school basketball players go on to play college, and it was like 1% play Division I, 1% play Division II, 1% play Division III. And his message to the team was like, there's not that many kids that have the opportunity that you guys have. So like it might seem like there is, but in the grand scheme of things, like you have a pretty good opportunity to play college basketball, which is, I always remember listening to that. He'd always tell the guys every year he'd have like one practice where he'd mention that. And it's like his point was Division III is a pretty high level of basketball. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of differences in Division I, Division II, and Division III, but it's all quality basketball. So I think there's a lot of people that might.
I would argue that execution is even more important because you don't have, the physical attributes to make up for, the lack of that execution.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some cases where that I would agree with you there, but it's interesting because I think even at the Division I level, I think there's different. Obviously, there's different levels, but at Colgate we might not get the same type of players as even other schools in our league or some other similar leagues. So we have to coach our guys differently. But I think Division III basketball is very high level. I agree. I think execution's important. Mm-hmm. It's something that, but we always tell our guys here about like the opportunity they have to be a Colgate student athlete. Well, the opportunity you have to be a college basketball player is also something pretty special. So I think Span did a really good job of explaining that. I think our guys here have a good understanding of the opportunity they have, and that I say to be the opportunity to be a college basketball player, but I think we all know that goes well beyond the basketball court, which I think is why I really liked working for Coach Spanbauer, because that's a lot of what he preached, and it's definitely a lot of what we preach to our guys here.
Yeah. Last question about Cortland. Kind of what were some of your roles, once you became a student manager your senior year, and how did that kind of prepare you for the situation you're in now?
So, well, you remember when we were managers at Cortland, it was everything. You fill the water bottles, you set up practice. I worked a clock for 4 years, and
you
hinted to it earlier, like yeah, like you got to drop the practice loops and all the dirty work that I guess a lot of people wouldn't like doing. And yeah. I didn't like doing some of the jobs necessarily, but I liked being a part of the program and being a part of the team.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I learned they're like, anywhere you are, you're going to have to do some stuff that you might not like to do, but you have to do it in order to stay where you're working. So like that helped me when I became an assistant. Well, at Division III, you have less resources than other programs. So, I was an assistant basketball coach, but me and Mo and JP Reagan handled the social media, and we would do all like the behind the scenes stuff and, some scheduling stuff or like all the little things that go into it where, it kind of just transitioned from, all right, the little things as a manager I need to do. There's also little things as an assistant coach I need to do. And now as the ops guy, it's similar. So I think being a Division III assistant, I think really helped me transition into an ops role because I did a lot of different things outside of basketball that are important to running a program. And then I get here as an ops guy, and I'm not allowed to get on the court and coach. And I'm not allowed to go on the road and recruit. And I have to focus on a lot of those behind the scenes things that are really important. Like, like timing of things and making sure you're scheduling and road trips and everything's like on point so that, your coaching staff, your players don't have to worry about things is my biggest thing. Like when I got here, I learned pretty quick. I was like, all right, my job is to do whatever I need to do so that our players can just play and our coaches can coach. Like anything I can do to take something off their plate, sure. Like that's my job. And coming from Cortland, it was, I think, easier for me to make that transition than I had thought at first.
Mm-hmm. Talk about how COVID, affected your season, especially the preseason. And talk about, I'm sure scheduling was an absolute nightmare, and then also just
still is.
And then also talking about how, some, high major Division I spots, wanted to play you just based off of, where your net rating was.
Yeah. So going back like before the season, like I remember there like our guys would come in an office and be like, "Hey, are we gonna play this year?" It's like there was like a big question mark on the year, when our guys got back to campus, and at first like we were like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Like we don't like the world's going through something crazy. Like we don't know if we're gonna be able to play. But our message to the guys was like, we're gonna do everything to be ready if that opportunity comes. So we were able. I think Colgate's done a tremendous job with their COVID protocols and to make sure everything, all students here are safe. So we started small groups and things, and we started practicing not knowing when we were going to play. And I think practicing without having an opponent on the schedule is different than normal years. So the Patriot League made the decision to not have a non-conference schedule. So I think one of the weirdest parts was college basketball starts and other teams are playing and we can't. So we couldn't play until January, which, to be honest, like it hurt. Like I'd go home from practice and I'd turn on the TV and I'd be watching college basketball. I'm like, man. And I know our guys felt the same way. Like, we just want to compete. So I think then obviously we were fortunate enough to have a conference schedule. So once they came out with the Patriot League schedule, like that first practice was just so intense. Like our guys were just so excited to have somebody on the schedule, see an opponent's name. We're like, all right, we're playing. So once we started playing, it was a relief, but we also knew like it's still not normal. Like, we had 2 weekends, I believe, where other teams traveled to Hamilton and we ended up not even playing the game because people in other programs had come up with a positive test or, symptoms, like whatever it may be, and we didn't play. So like it's, there was 2 weekends where we had our uniforms on warming up and we ended up changing into our practice gear and practicing, which is like to change your mindset that quick is like hard. I think our guys did an unbelievable job with it. Like, we did an inter-squad scrimmage one day. We were supposed to play a game. So like being able to change gears and like just on the fly, just be able to figure it out. I think our program might have even had like less like COVID issues to deal with throughout the year. And it was still hard for us. Fortunately for us, and I think it's a credit to all of our players and Colgate University as a whole. We had 0 people test positive through the whole season in our whatever they call tier or whatever they called it. Which I'd like to see how many programs across the country had 0 or not many, because I feel like there's a lot that went on pauses. But it was a weird year, but it was such a relief to play. And like even people during the season would ask me all the time, like, "Whoa, you play the same 5 teams or the same 4 teams all year?" And like, yeah, like it is weird. Like we'll play a team and then 2 weeks later they're coming our place and we're playing them again. But it's just such a relief to compete and play basketball again. And it's like, it's almost like you don't care who you're playing. You just want to play.
Yeah.
Going off your point of the net rankings, I think we weren't allowed to play anyone outside of our conference. I think our net ranking was very high. So I think maybe there would have been some opportunity where some bubble teams would have wanted to play us or things like that. But unfortunately, we didn't get that opportunity. But again, it's just like, all right, well, the football coach here, Dan Hunt, is an awesome guy. He always tells his guys, like, we'll fight when we're told, and we'll win when we'll fight. So I think we kind of adopted that slogan a little bit, just because you didn't know who you're playing, you know when you're playing. But if it switches a day before the game, so be it. Let's go compete.
Okay. Let's talk about, the way that your staff recruits. You're not on the road, but I'm sure that you're still involved in the process as far as, either fielding, people, high school coaches, AU coaches reaching out, expressing interest, or, people reaching out to the assistant coaches. I'm sure that you do a good bit of vetting when it comes to video stuff. So kind of talk about your role there and, how recruiting, Colgate's different than a lot of places because of, the academic standards that you guys have there.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's unique because the academic requirements, and also, we have a unique location, and it's a little different than other schools, other Division I schools, other schools in our league. So I think our mindset's kind of just trying to find the right players, like the players that want to be here, and like they value academics, they value playing basketball, they value the same things that the players that are already in our program value. Like that's why they're here. And recruiting is always difficult, no matter where you are, because you might get a kid to commit to you, and then you're like, oh, I hope he's what we think he is. But I think here we do a good job of like gathering so much information about a kid that when we offer him a scholarship, or when we're recruiting, it's getting a little more serious in the recruiting process, that we really feel deep down that like, all right, this kid is what we're looking for in terms of a person and a player. So, and that might be like, we might call his high school coach, his AAU coach, his trainer, his parents. Then you might call like his high school baseball coach. Like you want to know everything about the kid, just so, there's no red flags, or, red flags to other people, other programs are like, oh, this kid's been to 3 high schools. Well, I don't want to recruit this kid. Well, maybe there's a reason. Maybe he moved. Maybe there's a good reason he's at a couple different high schools. So just gathering so much information that, when we do bring him to campus and we do feel comfortable with him and he feels comfortable here and with our players, that, we extend an offer for him to join our team. So I think just getting to know so much little minor details that I think it's helped us here. Like you said, I'm not able to recruit, and unfortunately, I'm able to recruit and call kids and coaches and build these relationships here yet. But when a kid comes to campus, like we all spend time with them. Every member of the coaching staff, like Coach Moore might be the lead recruiter on a guy, but when he gets to campus for a visit, he spends the same amount of time with me as the assistants, and we make sure he spends time with the guys, because a place like Colgate, we're a little farther out, than a lot of schools. So if a kid's not going to feel comfortable here, well, maybe it's not the best place for him. So I think finding enough information about kids and finding the right kids that want to be here is important to us.
Whether it's something that is a red flag or something that you're prioritizing, what's something about recruiting that you've learned, in the last 3 years that you didn't, either know before Cortland or, you didn't know after?
I think me being a very young assistant coach at Cortland, I was always like, let's just go find the best player I could find and convince him SUNY Cortland was the place for him. And me and Mo, my first year, Span was like, we need like 9 players. I'm like, 9, geez. All right, let's get on the road. And I hadn't really recruited before that. I'd recruited kids to come to hoop group camp, but I think that's different because, any kid can go to hoop group camp and play, and you're finding kids. But when you're recruiting for a program, you want to make sure it's the right kid. So when I was an assistant at Cortland, I think I was doing some of that naturally because of how Coach Span runs his program.
Yeah.
But then getting here, like I really saw the importance of finding the right kid for where you are, or what your values are in your program. You need to find the players that have that they value the same things as your program, I guess is a good way to put it. Which, I thought I knew it all when I was at Cortland, but it's definitely one thing I've picked up on as I learn more about it.
Would love to hear too, what are some cross-offs, outside of the academics, that there's a lot of parents and, high school coaches, back here and back home in New York that kind of listen to the pod. So, what's a way that, they really should avoid doing this because it's going to mess up their recruitment, whether that's, having too many Twitter likes of, girls' booty pics or, you know, some marijuana leads and stuff like that. What are some cross offs for you as a college coach when you're looking into a guy?
Yeah, I think those things, like me personally, I think like when you're watching a kid, like his attitude towards coaching and towards his teammates, like
Mm,
if he just clearly doesn't care about his teammates and his coach is trying to tell him something, he's kind of blowing him off. Like in my opinion, like that kind of just grinds my gears a little bit. And it's like, all right, well, if he's doing that here in AAU or high school, like probably going to do that at the next level. So I think every kid's different, but
hmm
like stuff like that, like how they treat people, like if you see him after a game or how he treats an official or someone in passing at a tournament or wherever you are, or he comes to campus, how he interacts with other people on your campus, and if he's not friendly or interacts in a negative way, I think that for me is something that's a red flag in my opinion.
hmm
Because like a lot of those things are habits, and
mm
bad habits are tough to get rid of. So
mm.
for every kid that's doing that, he might be really good, but there's another kid out there that's doing the same things on the court, and he's treating people the right way and accepting coaching and
Mm.
listening and doing all the things, going about his business the right way, that are it's easier to recruit a kid like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I've been told by a lot of college coaches is it's a lot more about the things that you shouldn't be doing, that if you just avoid doing those, it's going to help your case a lot easier. Let's talk about balancing the personalities of the head coach that you work for. Sometimes it can be a good cop bad cop situation. Other times it's really just being the yin to the yang of the other coaches and just kind of balancing the energy on the team, because if it's all five coaches losing their mind, it's going to be bad. If it's all five coaches being calm, cool, and collected, laid back, it's going to have a different effect on that. So talk about what you've learned kind of in that area.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic, because I think as an assistant coach, or like my position as the ops guy, like I'm not able to recruit or get on the court and coach the guys like I'd want to. So one of the ways I think I hope I make an impact on our program is building relationships with our players. So since I can't do those things, I think that's one thing I do well here, is to get to know our guys and let them know I care about what they're doing in basketball and school, what's going on at home and things like that. But as an assistant coach or support staff role, I think you have to build a good relationship. Like you have to as a head coach too. But a lot of players are more comfortable expressing themselves a little bit
Mm-hmm.
to an assistant or support staff that can help. Like when we meet as a staff and we talk about our own roster, like maybe I see something that one of our guys is going through, or something that's in his head, that then it helps us as a group coach him the right way or a little differently, or something to make sure that his experience is going well. And or you might see something that's hurting the team, and it's through building relationships with guys. So I think good cop bad cop's like an interesting way to put it. Like I feel like a lot of people think like the head coach has to be this like mean bad guy that the players don't like, but he does a good job, and the assistants are the good cops that make sure the guys are happy. And maybe that works, but I think there's a way to do it where all members of the coaching staff command the same respect, but like there is a little bit of that, having assistants and support staff build a closer relationship with the guys. Like one of the things we do here is we'll split up our roster. So myself and the three assistants will split up our roster, and we'll all have a handful of guys that we work with a little bit more individually. And that's with, schoolwork or extra things we're doing in the community as a team, or, Colgate might have some sort of training for their student athletes they need to complete online. So we're following up with that. And, midterms are this week. Like, let me follow up with my 4 guys on what's going on in their class schedule. Like, how can I help them? How can I, what light can I shed on their situation to help them make sure they're doing well in class? That's helped us. Like, if a guy approaches me with an issue and he's not one of my guys, I'll still help him. I'll do anything to help him. But just so you focus a little bit more individually on those guys. And then, like, when we meet as a staff, if one of my guys has something going on that I think I need to bring up to the staff, like, hey, so-and-so's got this going on. Here's what I think. Here's what I told them. Here's how I think I can help them. Just wanted to let you guys know. Like, hey, so-and-so's having a bad day. This happened. Just want to bring it up to you guys. And I think that allows for a program to be pretty transparent. I think the guys like it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that was actually what I was going to ask next is, talking about relationship building. But you kind of answered that, staying ahead of the game.
Sorry.
Nah, no worries. I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. So what are some things that you've taken from Span and that you're going to take from Coach Langle eventually, when you're running your own program down the line? What are some, whether that's a drill, whether that's an offensive principle, whether that's a defensive fundamental, whether that's, like Coach Span's outside hand passing drill. He's big on that. So
yeah,
about some of the stuff that you're going to take with you, once you establish, yourself in a head coaching role.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with Coach Spanbauer. I think he was unbelievable with some of those, like, small details that go a long way.
Yep.
And, like, the outside hand passing, like square passing, I used to look at first and why are we doing like like when you first saw that drill, did you think the same thing as me? I was like, this is college basketball. We pass the ball in a square with our opposite hand. And then I was like, all right, well, then you got me thinking, like, Coach Spanbauer has been very successful at court. Why is he doing this? It's clearly worked. And then there's a lot of little detail things I think he was great with. And I think that helped him put guys in the right spots to succeed. So, got like Justin Cooper was a point guard, but he also played out of the 4-man spot, like things like that, because his skill set allowed him to. So I think he's opened my eyes to that. I think here at Colgate, I love the way we play offensively. It's very free flowing and it's not really too scripted. Like, we don't really joystick the players. We try and give them the tools and show them the right decisions to make. Because at the end of the day, like, we can't play the game. So the guys on the court need to be able to make these decisions. And basketball is a fast game, so you got to be able to make them at a fast pace. So the offensive stuff we run here, I love. In terms of from Coach Langle and the rest of the staff is just they're always so brutally honest, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, they're honest with everybody they come in contact with, and it allows you to build trust and respect for everybody in the program. I think that's why the culture of our program is in a really good place. Is everybody gets the same respect and the same honesty, and everyone's a little different. So you might go about it in a different way to a different player, but I think all our players understand that they all get the same honesty from every coach, every member of the coaching staff, and they're able to respect that, and it allows you to build trust. Like, that's a huge takeaway I've had here. Like, sometimes it's something you don't want to hear, but as a 18 to 22-year-old, you're able to respect that and learn from it and maybe change, or maybe they ask, hey, what can I do to switch this around? And another honest answer. Then I find that when you're very honest with the players or people, they'll be honest right back with you. And sometimes it's things that they might not want to tell you, but they will because they know you've been honest with them.
Let's talk about, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. Uh, I remember a moment during Cortland basketball tryouts, and Jesse Winters, who's the all-time leading scorer at SUNY Cortland. I remember he drove to the paint and drew two defenders, and he hit me on the wing for a pass for a three. And I can't remember why I did, but I passed up the shot, which is not something I do very often, by the way. But I passed up the three, and I'm pretty sure he started yelling at me right then and there. He's like, "Yo, you better shoot that shit if you want to make this team." Like, I've seen you shoot like in workouts and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
you have you're a good shooter, but if you don't shoot that shot, like, you can't show coach that you're going to make that shot, and he's not going to trust it. So talk about some of the chatter that you have with your guys, throughout the season, working on their confidence, or, just during tryouts, that I'm sure you've evolved in that area as far as finding your voice and, knowing what to say and when to say it.
Yeah, I think Jesse's telling you to shoot because he knows it was a good shot and it was a good shot for the team. He knew you could make it. Like he's a great player. Like he put that ball in your hands thinking you'd shoot it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think give it like obviously I think players will always do what they know they're capable of. Like that, a lot of guys won't try and go outside of their comfort zone. So. Like we have a guy on our team who, in his first year, he didn't play as much. In practice, he worked really hard. He didn't really shoot the ball great, but I don't think there was one time we told him not to shoot the ball. Like if he was open, we want him to shoot the ball. And he'd get game reps and get game speed reps in a practice, and then he comes in the next year and he's able to, I don't know what percentage he shot him at, but he's able to make open shots, and teams had to defend him a little differently. They didn't think they'd have to. Well, that goes back to the previous year. Like, we didn't tell him he couldn't do it. I think, maybe if he was in your situation and Jesse Winter passed him the ball, maybe he would have drove the ball too, or maybe he would have passed it back. But we didn't tell him no. And he keeps working hard. He's able to make shots, and like he's helped his game. It's helped our team. I don't know if that answers your question, but
yeah, no, it does. Let's talk about an area of coaching that you feel like you've improved the most, and whether that's scheduling, communicating, networking, recruiting, academics, handling the ball racks.
yeah, no one's kicked over a ball rack on my watch in a while, which is huge.
Good.
But I don't know. I don't know if there's like one area that sticks out more than others. I think me being a young coach, I try and soak up as much info as possible about everything I can. So, I'm limited here at Colgate, where I'm not on the road recruiting, but I sit down with our assistants and in our staff meetings when we talk recruiting, and I try and learn things like, how did this coach handle this situation with this kid, and how did he word this? How did he, get this message to this kid across? Like, I think, and Span kind of told me this when I started working for him. He was like, I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm not going to tell you, hey, Pat, look at this. Like, see how I did this. Like, you learn what you want to learn. So, like, picking up a little bit of everything on all different types of aspects of coaching. I'm glad you mentioned a lot of other things other than just basketball stuff in there, because I think that's hugely important.
Gotcha. And just out of curiosity, if you don't have a big network, how do you go about scheduling? Is it kind of, you talk as a staff and you're like, you know what, let's look at playing Lafayette this year. Is it something where you guys kind of narrow it down yourself, and then, from there you reach out to schools? How does that work?
So I don't directly do our scheduling here. I think a lot of it is word of mouth, and the coaching community is smaller than people think. There's a lot of people, but I feel like you always know someone. You always have a mutual friend or know someone that knows another guy at a different program. I think there's websites now that you can kind of put your available dates and see what other teams need what. A lot of it for us is, kind of who's in this region, really. Like we'll travel a little bit, for some non-conference games, but, we'll play Binghamton, who's close, or Cornell, or Columbia's in New York City is like a 4-hour ride. There's also, I think, conventions at the Final Four, like when they do the big like NABC convention. I think there is like a period of time set aside for people to go kind of hammer out some scheduling stuff. I don't know. I haven't had to do much of it here, but a lot of it is word of mouth. Like one of our assistants who does deal with scheduling, he'll tell me like, hey, if you talk to anybody, like ask them if they need games on these dates, or ask them if they're looking for, something like this, or we're going to this area. Do you know any coaches in this state that are near this school? Like for us, it's kind of got to make sense, like logistically. Like if we're going further, we'll probably want to play 2 games out that way rather than just going down for 1.
Gotcha. Okay. Couple more questions and then we'll hit some quick hitters as my dog dies coughing here in the background. I heard on the last podcast, the one that we mentioned earlier, you were kind of talking about, your head coach always repeats, is that our shot? Can you talk about some of the maybe pillars or some of the drills, some of the offensive principles that lead you guys to where you're at offensively? I think you finished second in points scored this year. And your offense has been great. The efficiency, team efficiency and individual player efficiency has been, toward the top of the NCAA the last couple of years. Can you talk about, what plays into that?
Yeah. So I think what I talked about with Coach Stark and like taking our shot, like, you might take a shot that might be an okay shot, might be a good shot, but is it the best shot for us? Like, is it the best shot for our group? Does this shot give us the best chance to, play the way we want to play, or however the flow of the game's going? We talk about a lot in practice. I think we have a lot of very smart basketball players, so I think it's, maybe it's easier for us to get that. Like we have a lot of guys that buy into that quickly. I really like it. I think we do have good shot selection. I mean, it's impossible to go a whole basketball game and only take good shots. Like it's also a game of mistakes. Like you're going to make mistakes. You're going to take a couple of shots that aren't our shot. But if you understand that shot's not our shot, well, then you learn from it. And maybe the next time you swing it or you drive it, stuff like that. Another thing we talk about a lot is, like Coach Lango might stop practice and be like, and ask. He usually does it to the young guys, which is kind of funny, some of their answers. But like they'll make a decision, and he'll stop and be like, "Why did you pass that? Why did you pass the ball here? Or why did you drive this gap? Or who told you to do this?" And he always like, "Who told you to pass it to him in the corner?" And like the new guys are always like, "Coach Moore said it on the sideline," or like something funny. But the answer is the defense told you. Like the defense played you this way, so you made this decision. And I think that helps us a lot. Like, all right, there's 2 guys guarding the ball here, or I'm a guard, I'm coming off a ball screen, they're zoning up on the back side of it. Well, I'm going to pass it here because there's a 2-on-1 there. We have a guy who can attack a closeout, and then there's only 1 defender and 2 of our players. So that's one thing I like. I think sure there's a lot of teams that are portraying that same message one way or another.
Okay. And so 3 more questions. So I really want to know what your practice breakdown is like. So, is there a drill that you guys do every day? Do you always spend, 75% of it on offense versus, defense? Are you guys pretty heavy into competitive full court drills? Are you guys competitive in, you guys do a lot of 3-on-3 stuff? What do your practices look like?
So I think a lot of it depends on where we're at in the year and like who we have on the roster that year. Like we might play differently. Like this year we played at a faster pace than my first 2 years at Colgate. So I think we did do a lot more in transition or run a little bit more. We have a lot of drills that we'll do every day. Like there's a couple of shooting drills. There's one shooting drill we'll sprinkle in every practice at least once, sometimes more. There's another shooting drill that we'll end every practice with. We've ended every practice with it. For my 3 years, I would imagine these guys have ended their practice with it for longer than that. I don't know. I think we're pretty good offensively, but we still do a lot on defense. And some drills, like, I don't think there's any drill where if there's any live drill, it's not only an offensive drill. You could still coach the defense. Okay. So we do a lot of shooting and a lot of footwork stuff and breakdown stuff. Every day we'll also split up and do a post perimeter. So, two of our assistants will take the perimeter guys on one end, and our other assistant. This year I was able to get on the court and rebound and do some things with a waiver for support staff. So I would help, rebound or get the pad with the big guys. And, that's some freedom that Coach Langle gives our coaching staff. Like, hey, we're going to have a 10-minute segment every day. Like, do what you want. And there's a lot of different things we do in that, depending on who we're playing and things like that. Some days, like, we might just work on, like, just finishing moves around the rim. Or then the next day, like, we might be preparing to play someone over the weekend. So we guard ball screens the way we're going to guard them in that game. But I think it's cool that there's a little freedom there. Every practice is a little different, but we do have a lot of, like, staple drills. Yep. I don't know. It'd be tough for me to describe them over the phone, I think.
You can send me videos. That'll work. I definitely.
Yeah, I could definitely do that.
Definitely selfishly want those. All right. So
for sure.
Last question is, you guys are one of the best mid-major, programs in the country. You guys have beaten and played some heavyweights, pretty much every year. You guys play Syracuse, although this year, your league shut that down. But you play Syracuse, and you played Arkansas in the tournament. Played them tough. We're leading up until I think 8 or 9 minutes left in that game. Does your approach change any differently to those games? Like, is there anything that you do differently? Are the guys more focused? Or do the drills change up? And then the second part to that question is, how do you guys stick with what what you do during the conference schedule, or do you throw little wrinkles in? Kind of, what does that look like?
So I think we, in terms of how we prepare for a game with our team,
yep.
we do it the same for a conference game as we do a non-conference game, or when we are playing a high major program. Mm-hmm. Like, our game plan might be different based off of who we're playing, but we'll do the same thing. Like, 2 days out of the game, like, we'll watch the same film breakdown on the team, or we'll watch the personnel, and then the next day we'll go over their offense and defense and apply stuff on the court. I think, I don't know, I'd be curious to talk to our players and see, like, if they get more fired up for one of those games than other games. But my guess would be not really. Like, we prepare for them the same way. Like, we go in every game approaching the game and trying to win it. So I hope our guys would be like, yeah, we attack every game the same. We play Syracuse in the fall, but then when it's late January and we're playing a conference game, like, I hope they're attacking it with the same energy or intensity. What was the second part of your question? Sorry.
Just for the conference play, versus when you're playing a big opponent. So you kind of answered that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it depends on who we're playing. Like, there's a lot of good teams in our league, so we might focus on a different area or defend a ball screen a different way against a different team, or some teams might sprinkle in a zone, so we got to prepare to play against more zone than we did the weekend before, stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Last question. The transfer portal was absolutely insane this year. I think the last
still is.
I just looked it up. I cannot find it right now, but it was something like 1,300, kids in the portal. And that tends to adversely affect, mid-major schools, low major schools, good D2s, because the guys are trying to move up a level, at least in their minds. They think it's going to be better for their career. Whether or not that works out, it's up for interpretation. But, talk about being a mid-major program in the midst of that. Sometimes it works out that you do get a transfer, but other times, from what I hear from college coaches, like you have to spend the same amount of time recruiting your team back as you do, recruiting, new guys, high school guys, transfers.
Yeah, I think the portal's crazy. I mean, obviously, like the one-time play right away waiver kind of throws a wrench into things.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people in the portal that made decisions on college. Like, a lot of colleges you can't go visit right now, or you can't go on an unofficial or an official visit per campus rules and things like that. So, it's tough to really know, like, that's the college I want to play at. Like,
Yeah.
You haven't been there, you haven't sat down with your future teammates and things like that. So then some kids get to a school and like, wow, this isn't what I expected to be, and leave. Which I think adds more people to the portal, like you said. We had a couple guys go in the portal, and fortunately for us, both guys elected to return back to Colgate. I don't know. I think like you said, recruiting your own players was like it's different when you've coached them for a few years. Like they know what you're all about. You know what they're all about. And just, I think a lot of it depends on why a kid wants to leave. Like if you're recruiting a transfer, I think the first question you should ask is why are you leaving that program? Like, it might be a reason like, oh, like maybe that's a red flag, or might be like, well, yeah, it's a really good reason. Like you need to be closer to home, or it wasn't a good situation for you. I mean, we've had transfers here since I've been here and before that have done really well, but I think it goes back to just the main point about recruiting is you got to find the guys that are going to want to be in your program, or that value the same things you do. So if you find that guy in the portal, he has the same values as you, and maybe it is a good situation. Or, if you find out that you guys don't see the same things the same way or things like that, well, maybe it's smart to not take that kid and he could find a different opportunity. But the transfer portal is wild, man. Easy to get in. It's hard to get out.
Yeah, it's bananas to watch, and you're wondering, where some of these kids are getting their information from. All right, last segment, we'll just hit some quick hitters real quick, and then we'll get you out of here. I'm sure you have some chores you have to do for the basketball team. So, MJ or LeBron?
MJ.
I love it. What book is a must read for every basketball coach?
I like Coach Krzyzewski's book. I forget the title of it. I read that. I took that off of Coach Span's bookshelf. And then actually in the bubble this year, they gave everyone John Thompson's book, which I haven't started yet, but I'm excited about it.
Okay. Would you rather take a charge from Shaq or try to guard Kevin Durant with the game on the line?
I'm a charge guy. I'll tell you that right now.
I knew that was going to be your answer. I knew that was going to be your from Shaq.
People laugh, and our coaching staff will laugh, but like I told our guys, I was like, we don't take enough charges. We got enough opportunities. So towards the second half of the year, I told anyone who took a charge, they're getting a cookie after the game, the charge cookie. We went from having like 2 total charges taken as a team. I think we finished with like 20 something.
There you go. I love it.
So I'll take the hit. Give me my cookie.
Hey man, you taking an elbow from Shaq, that takes some stones for sure. What's the best dynasty you've seen in basketball?
Ooh, I don't know. That I've seen personally, or
I mean, if you've watched some, YouTube documentaries about it. Maybe this off season, maybe that one's there for you. The Bulls.
I mean, I think the Last Dance was unbelievable. I loved it, but obviously I was just born.
Yeah. You got something for that or no?
I'll stick with that Bulls team.
Yeah.
Teams.
There you go.
Even though I wasn't really around.
I think it would be Shaq and Kobe for me if they hadn't broken up. Underrated,
Yeah,
underrated,
that's true.
underrated Twitter follow, whether it's a basketball writer, whether it's a stats guy. What do you got for that?
Coach Dan Hunt, the head football coach here at Colgate. He's a great follow.
Interesting. Okay. What's your favorite podcast or YouTube series?
I've listened to a lot of different ones. Actually, one of our players put me on to it's All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson.
Great pod. Yes, sir. That's a great one.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, they talk basketball, they talk life, they get other people outside of basketball people coming in. I think it's Nelly Cummings, one of our players. He was listening to it, and I was like, I asked him what he was listening to, and I started, and I'm hooked.
They just had Shaq last week. That was really good. What was the
I'll be listening.
What was the first time that you were in a room when you realized you don't know anything about basketball? When you just around some basketball minds that you're just like, damn, I have a long way to go.
Honestly, yeah, I felt that way when I started at Colgate. Like, all these guys have had great playing careers, have been coaching for a while, and I was so young, and my only experience had really been working at Cortland. So, like, just absorbing all these new concepts and new ideas, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I think it's helped me because I was able to learn those new things here.
What coaches do you study?
That's an interesting one. I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's one guy I can be like, oh, I just follow it. Like, I just love everything he does. I think I like to try and, pick things from everybody if I can. Gotcha. I think there's always something you can learn from each person.
That was a very coach-like answer there.
Yeah, I couldn't give you one single person, to be honest.
What's the hardest shot in basketball?
Hardest shot in basketball?
Yeah.
I don't know.
For me, it's that when you're in the fast break and you're in that short corner, like you're not under the rim and there's a defender between you and the rim.
Yeah.
It's a weird because you can't bank it and a floater's just gonna go off. So yeah, that's my least favorite.
Yeah.
Stuff. All right. Here's the money question. So would you rather take Mo or Span to hit a wing three to save your life?
Mo or Span to hit a winning three?
To hit a wing three to save your life.
I mean, this is out of no disrespect to Mo Kearney, but I know Span can shoot that thing. I've heard about it. I've seen him take some shots in practice before, and he makes them. And that's like I said, no disrespect to Mo, but I'm taking Span. He's gonna hit it.
I know Mo has really been selling his 3-point shot every time we've been talking. He's like, man, you don't understand. I had a jump shot after my play.
Mo can knock him down. Mo can knock him down, but like
as a player, that was not his game.
Did.
As a player, that definitely was not his game. All right, and then to close it out, I want to hear your best Tom Spanbauer impression.
Man, I don't know. Span did a lot of things that I used to remember. I mean, one, he would always start every game. He'd like walk down the end of the bench and he'd sit down on one knee for the jump ball. And then ball gets tipped up, game starts. First guy to make a mistake, he'd just stand there. Come on. And then right from that moment, it's just the flip switched and he was in game mode and he was just intense the whole 40 minutes. It was awesome. Fires me up.
He really was, it was funny because he'd be quiet if someone hit a jump shot or something, but yeah, he would kind of.
Yeah, that first thing he didn't like when he shot, come on.
I love it. All right, so the last segment on every podcast is I kind of flip the tables, and you get to ask me one question about whatever you want.
I like that. I'd ask you, like, what's the biggest thing that you could take away from working at a program like the Matho? Like, everyone, like, no surprise the success DeMatha has, and
Yeah.
like they're good every year. Like, but whether it's basketball or non-basketball, like what's one thing that you're taking away from your experience at DeMatha?
Oof. A lot. Working under Coach Jones has been not just
For
Coach
sure.
Jones, but working under his staff. Kevin Cromer, Daryl Green, um, you know, Banks, and some of the guys. There's some consistency that he really likes. He really likes his assistant coaches to be former players at DeMatha. So I think I'm one of two coaches on staff, and there's I think there's 13 assistants, between the freshman, JV, and varsity team. I'm pretty sure I'm one of two guys that did not play at DeMatha and did not go there. So he really
Wow.
keeps it in the family, and so that really adds to each generation, kind of raising the next, and talking about how important it is to know how DeMatha on your chest is something you should be proud of. But I think the biggest thing for me is just some of the non-negotiables that he has that aren't they aren't normal. So, like, if a player misses a layup in practice, it's 10 push-ups right away. It doesn't matter if we're doing full court layups. It doesn't matter if we're warming up. It doesn't matter if it's in a game. Like, if it's in a game, like you miss the layup, as soon as there's a dead ball, he turns. He's like, "Yo, Pat, where are my 10 push-ups at?" And he just the kid drops down
That's
and knocks
hilarious.
him out. And it's just some of the stuff like that, and just some of the principles as far as pointing to the guy who scored and picking up your teammate whenever running over. Like, if you do not sprint over when your teammate's on the ground, he will light you up and he will take you out of the game immediately.
Yeah, I like that.
And just the amount of players, we're seeing Hunter Dickinson just killing it at Michigan, and a lot of people are just, whoa, where did this come from? And I'm like, he's been dominating at DeMatha for a while, but like if he went to any other school in the country, this kid's averaging 27 and 14 in his sleep. And I think he ended up averaging 18 or 19. But I mean, I was talking to one of our assistants the other day, and I was like, who was the last guy that averaged over 20 points a game? Because it's really a lot of kids that it's the inverse for a lot of people. Most of the time they do well in high school and they do poorly in college. For our guys, it's like a kid will average 6-8 points a game. Jameer Young is a great example. So he was our starting point guard at DeMatha. Probably only scored about 8 points a game, maybe 10 max. Goes down to UNC Charlotte. Immediately he puts up 17, 5, and 4 a game in his freshman year. Wins the Freshman of the Year award, and I'm pretty sure he won the Player of the Year award this past season. So, just guys understanding that they're going to have to sacrifice shots to play at DeMatha, understanding that like coach is not like, if you're good, like cool, he's going to bring in other good players to compete with you every day. So you are not going to get comfortable at any
Yeah,
in your 4 years.
that's awesome.
He's not going to be afraid of that. And then just how intense coach is. Coach is like Tom Izzo when it comes to scheduling. I mean, he is one of the most aggressive, schedulers. Like he wants to play Montverde at Montverde. He wants to play IMG Academy. He wants to play Sunrise at these events. When he's talking to the people that are hosting these tournaments, he's like, look, like I want to play this team. I don't want to, like, we're not traveling to Florida to play some scrub. Like we're not traveling to Massachusetts to play in hoop hall to play, the local team. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah,
he wants all the smoke, and he, it's important obviously for recruiting for the kids that we bring in. Locally there's a lot of competition with the high schools, and being able to have those showcase games is important. Being able to play on TV is obviously huge at our level. But I mean he sets up 4 or 5 games a year that are on national TV that put a lot of pressure on guys, and he wants guys that wants that pressure. So that's something that I really like about him, and something that I really think is important, because you can be as good as you want to be, but if you're only playing the local talent in the area, it is what it is. I mean, it's eventually going to come out. So, I mean, if you're scheduling some cupcake teams, just because that's, you want to kind of stack your record or help your kids' confidence or, help their recruiting and stuff like that. I mean, our conference is really hard, but I don't really count this past season just because of COVID and everything. It was hard to schedule stuff. But the year before that, like, we played Sunrise Christian, we played Montverde. We had Charlotte Christian, Steph Curry's team, come into town to play us in our tournament. We played Simeon, Chicago's like best public school team at Hoop Hall. We played Rancho Christian that had Evan Mobley on it. And then, we're playing against Paul the Sixth that, has, Doug and Trevor Keels on it. We're playing St. John's that had Casey Morsell and all these guys on it. And so I think it's just really cool that in a lot of situations, they would see, a coach would be like, our our league's tough, so I'm not going to make it any more difficult. Like our our out of conference schedule is going to be a cakewalk, and he's trying to prepare kids for the next level. And there's some kids even at the Division II level that they come back to me and they're like, Coach, like the amount of preparation that Coach Jones had us doing is more than our college teams are doing. And I had the opportunity to work with, I don't know if you're familiar with the Capital Classic All-Star Game. It started in DC some years ago. The picture that LeBron James just posted the other day was CP3 on CP3's birthday. I think it was yesterday. That was in the Capital Classic game. It's this big All-Star game.
Oh, wow.
I brought in. I want a coach to coach the local team. It's basically a team of local kids from the DMV to play against kids from the rest of the country in like an All-Star game. And I want a coach to coach the local team because he played in the game back in the day, and obviously he's worked with, he's either coached or coached against a lot of these kids, whether it's in our camp or whatever the case may be. And I mean, this guy had a 90-minute practice and just had the dudes gelled like immediately. Like he had like
Oh,
kind of
wow.
a bonding activity the day before when we got in. Like we had like an inter squad scrimmage the first day the kids got into town. And then so we played against each other there behind closed doors. And then the next day we had, another practice, and like one 90-minute practice, he had the guys lined up. I mean, it also helped that a lot of these kids have played AAU together, or they had played together since they were in like third grade, on travel circuits and stuff. But just the way that he was able to get those guys connected was really cool to see. So that was a very long-winded answer to what you were saying, but really just the culture, DeMatha, and what another thing that Jones said on his podcast. I would definitely recommend that people go listen to that. But he was talking about how each wave of players not only inspires, but really gets into the next wave of players. So Hunter and Earl are coming back, and they're getting in the ear of, guys like Jordan that just graduated this year, and Lil E and stuff like that. And they're talking to them about preparation. Our guys that are in the NBA now, Markel and Vic, are always coming through to really get into the guys. And I mean, there was one of our sophomores this past year, Jacoy Hutchinson. I mean, he's like a top 25 kid in his class, but Jeremy Grant had just signed his deal, making 20 million a year, I think. And Jacoy thought he was, ahead of the game, getting to the gym at 7:30 during the summer. And Jeremy had already been there for an hour and a half, He'd in a full sweat. And this is a dude making $20 million a year. Like he doesn't need to be in a sweaty gym, at 6 a.m. during the summer when he could easily just do the same workout at 9. But just that type of culture, just inspiring kind of the next wave. And that class of players always reaching out to the class below them when they're in college, and still keeping up that communication is really important. So I think the culture is definitely a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot, kind of willy-nilly, but it's very intentional, and it's the most important thing to him, because Coach Wooten, everything that he built at DeMatha is very important to him. And so he sees, everything he does, and rightfully so, as a continuation of that tradition. And that's something that he takes seriously. So when it comes to, dudes bullshitting and stuff, when they're, in a DeMatha uniform on the road, before a big game, like, he's going to light their ass up. And it's not just because he's their coach. It's because it's like, look, you represent, 40 years of excellence in DeMatha basketball. And that type of culture is one that keeps winning. It starts winning and then, also continues it, down the line. So I don't know if you took anything of value from that, but yeah, that was my long-winded answer to your question there.
No, I definitely did. I mean, like, based off that answer, it seems pretty clear you're in a good situation. And to be honest, it seems like he runs his program more like a college. So it's probably why his players go on and have a lot of success at the next levels, because it's probably less of an adjustment for them coming from playing for him.
And it's really interesting too, because so he also coaches with Team USA. I believe it's at the U16 level. He won a gold medal in Brazil the summer before last. But just some of the teamwork and some of those concepts that he brings from that, and then just also working, the Nike Skills Academy and some of this other stuff. He always pulls in, new sets and new defensive ideas and stuff every year. So he's always constantly in learn mode, every off season too. I know it was a pretty enjoyable time, at least for me, the beginning of the pandemic last year, because there was all these college basketball minds with all this knowledge that all of a sudden they had time to do Zoom calls and stuff like that. And it was funny because I would be on a call and then I see Coach Jones' name and he's just there, to learn. He's just there. Like, some of them he was there to present. I think I was in 2 or 3 of them where he was presenting. Then I had no idea he was presenting in. I guess I don't pay enough attention to his social media, but I didn't even know that he was presenting, and I was just like, and I learned something from that, and which is crazy to say because I just finished my 3rd year there. But I'm able to still pick something up from him that I really enjoy. So I appreciate you having you on the show, man. Appreciate you coming on. It was a great time, learning a lot. Let the people know where they can find you on social media to learn more nuggets of wisdom from the great Pat Stasiak.
Cool, thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on. This was awesome.
Yeah. Let them know your social media handle, big guy.
Dude, I don't even know it off the top of my head.
You even know your own Twitter handle?
It's at Coach Staze, Staze. That's my Twitter handle.
Fantastic. All right, brother.
I had to look it up though. All right, Aaron, I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Stay safe.